We have a special guest today, our bestie, Brandy.
Woo!
Woo!
Hi, Brandy.
Hi, Brandy.
Hello.
Welcome back. We're your host, Savannah.
And Calan.
We are going to take turns and we're going to read some paranormal Reddit stories. So I'm really excited. So I'm going to read mine. This one's a little longer, so bear with me. I'll try to make it as interesting as possible. But it's interesting. Okay, so the title is My Basement Has No Hole. All right. There are some really, really messed up reasons to live in a haunted house. I, being of sound mind and body, don't know any of them, but I am superstitious as all hell. So when my wife and I moved up to New Hampshire, right on the Vermont border, we were looking for a place to rent for a year or two before we bought a house. Now, for all the New Englanders here, my wife is a native, I'm not. She's used to New England and the vast emptiness the small area has, and I've been to New England and all of this is 100% accurate. there are places she won't let me travel to after a certain hour because that route you have to take, people don't come back from. Of course, I'm not a native, so I don't know this. So when I was working, I would come home late after dark from work and tell her I took X route. She would kind of look in shock and awe at my stupidity. We found a home right on the above mentioned border on the Vermont side. We loved it. It was a fantastic place to live, except the basement. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched and stalked like prey. So, like any reasonable adult, I just said fuck it and didn't go down there, except during the day. So one night, after gaming for hours in my man cave, I got hungry. I went downstairs, kissed the missus, and walked past my basement door towards my kitchen. I don't know if anyone reading this has gone hunting, but there's a moment you sometimes experience, especially hunting predators like coyote, wolf, bear, etc. Sometimes they know you have them in your sight. Sometimes they look towards you, not quite at you, but it feels like they're boring into your soul, saying, "You got me, make it quick." It's an eerie feeling, and sometimes you take the shot, sometimes you don't. On that night, as I was walking past that door downstairs, I saw red eyes and a humanoid figure, and I froze. I stopped dead in my fucking tracks. I gave that same look of, "You got me, make it quick." After that momentary lapse of sanity, I just scooted real quick away from that door, grabbed a weapon, and called my wife, saying someone was downstairs, call the police. There is no other entrance to the basement, and I had the door covered with my weapon from a safe position where I could easily run from the house. Cops show up. I disarm. They clear the house. They find nobody, but a set of muddy footprints that start facing towards the stairs up that then proceed to walk into a wall in the back corner of the basement by the water heater. For some context, the wall in question also blocked off the area directly under my bedroom. It was a solid wall with a small crawl space and about maybe 4 inches of clearance on the other side of it. Cops call detectives. Detectives check it. Can't see anyone in it. They can't enter it. Photographs are taken. Shoe sizes are compared. My feet are too big. My wife's feet are too small. Get a good contact number for the detective. A wife and I stayed at a hotel for a couple of nights. I would too. For months afterwards, I would have this same thing happen, eventually minus the cops. It actually got relatively normal. Good old red eyes in the basement, chilling like a villain. Wife was less than enthused by my antics, cheerfully just going about, and when I would spot red eyes, I'd always give him a cheery, "Good morning, how you doing?" Of which we would still have muddy footprints, and I would just clean them up. So COVID hits, lockdowns happen, and we have an opportunity to move to a better house, one where we would be able to work at home better. The main reason the home was better was we had a mold issue in this house. It was in between the panes of glass and the windows. Every day we were cleaning it up from the windowsills, door frames, hell, we even had to replace pieces of furniture multiple times, and we are very clean people. We notified the landlord over multiple months and eventually a year, and after their actions not helping at all, we decided to move. Landlord decided to get a housing inspector out there immediately after we left. The inspector comes and verifies there is a mold issue. I don't know if they met red eyes. However, they did find a metric ton of readings of high spore counts on the wall bordering the space below my old bedroom, the wall where the footprints always ended. So, since it was filled, the inspector scoops a little bit of the earth on the other side of the wall through that crawl space. It wasn't earth as in dirt. It was approximately 7 feet of mold. 7 feet. The landlord then immediately contacted specialists to remove all of it and notified me to offer some kind of damages for it in the form of refunded partial rent payments. All in all, made my 2020 pretty good. Until, about 3 months later, the landlord calls me and offers to send me a full refund of all rent from the time I was living there, minus what she already gave. Why? There was a corpse. The medical examiner said it was the man who owned the property before my landlord. He was a lineman who, after talking to surviving family members, wore a size 8 shoe. Smaller than my size 11 shoes, bigger than my wife's shoes by a mile. Fuck me, Red Eyes. I don't know how you got there, but hell, bud, I hope you now found peace. Sorry for not checking it out sooner. I did, after reading about his obituary and contacting his family, swing by his final resting place to drop off flowers, place a stone, and share a good morning like I used to. Till better times, Red Eyes.
I love the ending. I would be terrified to find out that I was living in a house with a dead body in there. But I mean, you got a whole bunch of free money at the end of the day from
That is true. That is true. I did like how it had a wholesome ending.
Yeah.
And he was showing the corpse proper respect, which I think is why he never fucked with him when he was in the house.
I would have poured some out for him. Thank you, Red Eyes. You deserve this in me afterlife.
I'm gonna start saying that now, like, good morning, Red Eyes.
I know, right? Oh my god, that was so good. So mine is, my significant other was probably hurt by something. Need help or info. So it says, hello everyone, this is my first time posting here. I actually never visited this sub before, probably should have. It's 1:45 a.m. right now, and I refuse to go to sleep because something happened a few hours ago. My significant other and I were laying in bed, almost asleep, when he moved his body. I felt his back in a weird way. I asked him what's wrong, and he didn't answer. 1 or 2 minutes passed by, and he's talking again, telling me there's something in our room. I immediately turn on the lights and ask him, are you serious? He was, and he told me that there was some Egyptian-like big figure with a snout of a wolf and hairy hands pulling his feet up in the air and pressing his hand around his neck so he couldn't speak. This isn't the first time he told me about a different Egyptian figure. It's been some years since he told me about this figure for the first time. He says that it often stares at me, never touches me. It seems like it's there to protect me. Whenever I'm psychologically hurt or very distressed, it appears more often, like once a month. Same girl. It has already hurt him once. It's extremely strong. He had wounds on his back from sliding across the floor after being pushed backwards by it.
Oh my god.
There's no way he could have gotten them any other way, and he didn't have them 5 minutes before. I do believe in paranormal supernatural stuff, but I've never would have thought it would become dangerous. So someone said, I spent a lot of time studying demonology and mythology of different cultures. One thing I noticed about a lot of different demons said to exist is that they often bear similarities to ancient depicted Egyptian entities. And that many of them present as various animal creatures mixed with humanoid attributes. For example, Sir Guthie, I don't know if I'm saying that right, is said to present as a wolf before showing in human form. So that's interesting. And then someone else said, you can ask him later, but please ask him to... Oh, another thing that they said that I cut out, I didn't screenshot this on the Reddit, was that basically they, years ago, took items from a temple to cleanse their house with.
Oh.
It was like a major part of the story.
Yeah.
Someone said, you can ask him later, but please ask him to return whatever he took from the temple. It could be that due to the presence of those objects, your significant other is having such an experience. There have been several instances where someone took pieces of rocks or something else insignificant and ended up having a lot of problems. At the end, it stopped when they returned those things and an apology note.
Wow.
Never take from ancient stuff.
Don't even take a pebble.
Oh, people.
Yeah.
Scary vision my 14-year-old had with deceased grandfather.
Oh.
So it says, and by the way, I don't like reading out loud, so I'm going to face my fear and do it for this podcast.
How do you, girl?
It says, hello, I want to tell you what happened to my 14-year-old son last night. And if you have any ideas, please share. My father-in-law died last year at the beginning of July. My son and him weren't very close. We saw my in-laws about once a month, and the relationship was just normal, not too warm, not too cold. We live in Athens, Greece. This past Thursday, we left our home in Athens to go to my husband's village, where we go every summer for a vacation. His parents had bought a caravan that is stationary there, so we go about a week every year. I'm giving you all this info in case it is relative. The caravan and the car we drive now were my deceased father-in-law's beforehand. While driving there, my husband said to me that he has seen his father as a reflection in the car window while driving. He said the first time was while he was driving the van from his work, and the second time was just a few minutes before telling me. I was a bit speechless because my husband does not believe in any of this. He constantly makes fun of me for me believing in spirits. So for him to say this, I knew it meant something. Anyways, that was over. We get to the village. We had our 14-year-old son with us, another two children, 13 and 17, our son's best friends. Yesterday, Saturday, due to an emergency with my dog, we packed up and returned home to Athens because all the vets in the village were closed Saturday evening. My son was in the back speaking with his friends and saying to us to make it stop so they can eat. They were hungry. I had one earphone in, listening to an anti-anxiety meditation, trying to calm myself from the negative thoughts about my dog, and suddenly the kids weren't making any noises anymore, or so I thought. They were just getting tired. About 15 minutes later, my son said to stop the car and get a pill out of the luggage because his head is killing him. He looked very unwell. I asked him what's wrong, and he was holding his head in his hands and said, just give me a minute, just give me a painkiller, and I'll tell you later. He was tremendously upset. We get to the gas station / food stop, and I asked him again, what else is he feeling? Is he nauseous? He said, I saw Grandpa, and bursted into tears. I immediately told the other kids to get out and leave my son with his dad, and we went and got some food. I asked my 17-year-old what happened, and the boy said that my son suddenly was staring ahead, and the 17-year-old thought my son was playing a sick joke, like he had froze. So the older one pretended that he fell asleep so my son would end the joke, but he never did. The boy said my son just stared in the window in front, frozen eyes open, and after about 10 minutes he sat back, held his head, and asked us for a painkiller. My husband later told me what happened, and when we got home, eventually, my husband later told me what happened, and when we got home, eventually, my son was in bed, and I asked him to tell me what happened in his own words. He said suddenly everything turned black for him. He couldn't talk or hear the sounds around him. He saw the living room at my dad's house. The couch, specifically where my dad slept on the couch, was in the picture, and of his grandfather that really exists. So pretty much this dude saw his grandfather's house, where he was and everything, in his own brain, but he couldn't control what he was seeing. It was his own.
Wow.
It was whatever around. And mind you, the car he was in belonged to his grandfather. So he not only did he see his grandfather, he saw his grandma as well. He heard his grandfather, he went away. Then he saw his grandma, and then a black shadow came, took her away. Then he came back to reality. His head was hurting and he was terrified. While he was telling me, he started crying again. I am so worried for my son. He is healthy, and he also takes after his father in regards to everything. So I just hope that he doesn't experience this again, because he was super spooked out and it terrified him to no end.
Dang, poor kid.
Yeah, that's creepy. I can imagine going through that.
Seeing your dead grandparents while you're like visiting the stuff that belongs to them. And he was like, I think he said he was 14 years old, so it's not even like he's older, so he like understands more of like what's going on their side.
Yeah.
The 14-year-old little kid.
Yeah.
Because the dad, he was okay with it. The dad was like, yeah, I saw my father. It's weird, but I saw him. And
yeah.
he believe in that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That's creepy.
Jimmy, usually if like you don't believe in it, or if someone says that they don't believe in it and they have experience that they say is paranormal, it's probably happened. Like, probably.
Yeah.